رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا وحبيبنا. The Quranic theme that I'm going to be sharing with you tonight is addressing da'wah, or sincere da'wah. And I add the word sincere just as a caveat that the Quran usually uses whenever it talks about the concept of da'wah, as being the main function of a Muslim community. The main goal of us coming together and working together as Muslims is to the best of our ability, spread the teachings of this deen, of the faith. Because really that's our objective. Our main objective as Muslims in general, in the world, is to increase the amount of guidance, is to bring people closer and closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and grant them the ability to enjoy the teachings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in His book and the life of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam as well. So that is our victory and that is our triumph, is being able to achieve that. And achieving that requires a proper, a strong sense of obligation and also a proper approach towards the concept of da'wah. You need a proper approach to it. Because da'wah is something that requires a great degree of finesse, and it requires knowledge, and it requires a certain amount of commitment as well. Not everyone will do it like everyone else, meaning the form of da'wah that I perform is verbal and vocalized mostly, and it's towards Muslims. So that's kind of the department of da'wah that I do. Others may perform da'wah towards non-Muslims. Others may perform da'wah non-verbally towards Muslims, or non-verbally towards non-Muslims. So there's a variety of ways for da'wah to be performed. And it doesn't matter, all of it is good. The only piece that needs to be observed is the sincerity that's attached to it. And there must be ikhlas, there must be some degree of sincerity within the da'wah. If da'wah lacks sincerity at any level, if it does not have the proper amount of sincerity within it, then it becomes agenda driven. Then da'wah there are strings attached to the da'wah. And when there are strings attached to the da'wah, you take away the purity of it and it doesn't serve its purpose very well. And that's a very dangerous aspect of performing da'wah, where you are doing it, but you're expecting something in return from the person that you're doing it with. And of course, them learning Islam and committing to Islam is not something in return. That's just the purpose of da'wah in general. You're trying to get them to pick up this legacy and this message and join you in your journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and serving others and carrying Islam. But when there's other expectations attached to this da'wah, and sometimes there will be, not to get too technical, but these things happen. Whether it's da'wah, similar to what I'm doing here, where we are addressing Muslims, or whether you're addressing non-practicing Muslims, or whether you're educating people who are highly educated, or you're speaking to non-Muslims altogether, or you have to be careful from having a specific agenda within what you are doing. Meaning you're hoping for people somehow to show you loyalty, or to support your cause, or to be a part of your group, or to buy into your specific hizb or party. And that really is the struggle that comes with da'wah. Sincere da'wah is where you offer this guidance, and you turn your back and you move on, you keep on moving. You don't look back. Whether the person appreciates you, acknowledges you, supports you, accepts it fully, doesn't matter to you. You just offer it and you leave. Khalas, this is something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gifted me. He gifted it to me, I'm going to gift it to you. And then you do with it what you want. If there are strings attached, if I have a requirement from you, if I need you to do something for me, then this becomes a transaction. It's not da'wah anymore. Transactions are fine, as long as they're clear up front. As long as you make it clear up front that it's a transaction. I'm not doing this as a pay it forward. I'm not doing it because it's a part of my message, because it's a part of my obligation that I feel towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm doing it, I am going to give you this, I expect something in return from you. Right? If you say that, then you're honest and you're fine. And you're not going to get ajr for it because you're making it clear it's a transaction. But you also give the person in front of you the opportunity to refuse it, or at least think about it. Right? They can think about whether they want to get into this transaction or not. And if they don't, then they have the right not to. But da'wah, in order for it to have any degree of barakah, In order for it to work, it has to be sincere, which is why I put that word there, because I could have just said da'wah as the theme, and that would be a correct Quranic theme for sure. But I added the word sincere because that's the condition really for it. If it's not sincere, if you're not doing it for the sake of Allah, if you are not dealing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through guiding His people, if your mentality is not that, Ya Rabb, these are your lost children, these are your lost servants, I'm going to bring them back to you. I have to go out, I'll bring them back, don't worry. I'll go speak to them, and I'll make sure they come back to you, Ya Rabb. That's what you want. You want them to come back to you, I'll bring them back for you. You're doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not for yourself, technically not even for others, but rather for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's the sincerest and purest form of behavior. And it is the most valuable thing that you'll ever do, because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose the highest ranking individuals historically, He chose the prophets, alayhimus salatu wasalam, messengers. What was their sole mission? Right? Their sole mission was perform da'wah. That's all they did. They were not burdened with building great structures no. They were burdened with the obligation of spreading the message to others, performing da'wah. So this is the job of the anbiya. So if you accept it upon yourself, then you are taking upon yourself the obligation the anbiya carried before you. And since there are no anbiya that are going to come after Sayyidina Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, then we carry that burden equally amongst ourselves. That burden was immediately distributed amongst us. It was dispersed amongst all Muslims. Everyone to do it within the limitations of their capacity. Everyone to perform da'wah with the tools that they have. Some of us will do it like me. This is a very small piece of da'wah, by the way, less than 2%. This is a very small form of da'wah where you sit and I speak and people listen and try to help people comprehend things. The majority of da'wah does not happen like that. The majority of da'wah is not preaching. The majority of da'wah is practicing. But everyone will find where they are, what they're good at, and what they can do in terms of furthering this message and performing da'wah. Whether it's within their friends group, or within the company that they work at, or the school that they're in, or their family. Whether it's going to be verbal, or it's going to be supportive. I mean, just in the form of helping others and showing them, allowing them to witness and experience the beauty of what Islam actually is in its purest form of practice. And without riyah, you don't make things up to try and impress people. I've seen it happen. Don't make it. You don't have to make anything up. Islam is beautiful the way it is. It's perfected by Allah. الْيَوْمَ أَكْمَلْتُ لَكُمْ دِينَكُمْ وَأَتْمَمْتُ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعْمَتِي. I perfected your deen for you. And I bestowed the complete blessing upon you. You don't need to add anything to it or take anything away from it, just as it is. But this is what da'wah is, and this is our obligation. And a couple of years ago, I tried to the best of my ability, obviously I'm very flawed and my approach is probably flawed as well. I talked about 5 community focuses. 5 community focuses that any Muslim community in the West should be focused on, like things that we should be engaging in. 5 categories that we should all, you should find yourself in one of those categories. And I talked about education, I talked about mentorship, and we talked about advocacy, and we talked about financial centralization, and I talked about outreach. Outreach as one of the 5 categories. Outreach is da'wah, basically. It's reaching out to those who are not a part of the masajid. People who come to masajid, generally speaking, get supported well enough. Like if you're a regular in a masjid, you get enough support because you build a network, you get to know a bunch of people. So you have a social network that's reasonable. The imams or the shuyukh who are teaching are there so you can ask questions, and you're able to turn to them when you're in a moment of need. It's outreach towards Muslims who aren't a part of the general masajid congregation, or reaching out to non-Muslims who are, again, the basic obligation that we carry as Muslims in this country is to spread this message to people who aren't Muslim. And I feel like this piece we don't do very well, if at all. Like if we're doing it at all, which I don't know, it doesn't seem like we're doing it very well. We don't have the organized efforts towards it. We don't have the organized efforts towards doing this. We know that our community is a 40,000 populated community, at least. And that's like the census of, I think, 2021 or 22. We're projected to be more than that now. London is a very high percentage of Muslims, by the way, around 10%, something around that, which is very high. It's 3 times the national median of percentage, Muslim percentages in different cities. Yet, if you were to take any given night in the last 10 nights of Ramadan, right? And you go to the 10 masajid that exist here. And I'm counting all the small masajid, that like the North London Islamic Center, the Maktaba, the Bosnian Mosque, like all the smaller ones. And the big ones, we add up around between 8 and 10 centers altogether. They're small little places like Bostwick, YMCA, they open in Ramadan. So if you go and you just count how many people are praying, maybe you add up to 4,000 people, right? And then if you go at Eid, maybe 7,000 people. And then if you look at the market, the Eid market that happens later, maybe 15,000 people. We are still short 25,000 people. We are still short 25,000 Muslims that we don't see anywhere. We don't see them in masajid, we don't see them in Jumu'ah, we don't see them during Eid, we don't see them in even the events that we run for Eid, like the ones that are not religious, just come and buy food and stuff. So where are these people? Where do they live? What is their struggles? What are their struggles? Why aren't they in masajid? What is missing? What could we do more? Have you ever been to a high school in London? Go to a high school. Wallah, I went to a high school one day just for, to me, I thought it was in the Middle East. Wallah, I thought it was somewhere in the Middle East. It's ridiculous. Like, where is everybody? I give khutbahs at IUWO throughout the year. And I'm always upset. Like, I'm always angry. Look, just counting the numbers. Like, I give a khutbah, there's 300 people sitting here. And I saw 200 people leave for the khutbah before and another 150 coming in. There's like 900 students that are just attending Jumu'ah. Those are the students who are attending Jumu'ah. I'm not even going to touch how many Muslim students are there who don't attend Jumu'ah at all. Where are these people? Where is their effort? Where's their da'wah? Where's our da'wah towards them? My reach is very short. I can only reach to the end of this masjid. And based on the noise, not even to the end of the masjid, maybe to the middle of it. Yeah. Maybe I get right to the middle of the masjid, that's as far as I go. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. My point is that, like imams in masajid and shuyukh who speak and scholars who sit down and teach, their reach is limited to the people who are coming to their centers and listening to them. Even like what we put online, it's only really directed towards the people who know what this place is, have listened to me before, understand what I'm trying to teach, and are willing to they want to keep up. They missed a lecture, they want to make sure that they keep up with the lectures. That's what really it's designed for. We require, if we're going to have proper da'wah and proper outreach, we require efforts of people, organized efforts of going out to the community, going out to the schools and to the universities and to the workplaces, and reaching out to Muslims and seeing what it is that's missing for them. Why aren't they a part of things? What can we do to serve them and help them? How can we bring them closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And that is how you strengthen your community, by the way. Like, you want a strong community, that's how you make a strong community. You go out, you reach out to people who still have that. And you can't really hope to reach out to non-Muslims if you can't take care of your own. If we're not able to support our own Muslim community, then how do we support people who aren't Muslim? It's actually very hard, by the way, to support converts. It's not easy. It's a difficult process. It's hard for them because they lose so many family members and they lose their social circles. And they come to us, we don't support them well. Like, we don't make sure that we are their new family and their new social circles. This requires organized efforts and people who are willing to dedicate their time and dedicate their lives for this. The first set of verses that we're going to listen to, that we're going to talk about, that we'll hear in the first set of 4 rak'at inshallah tonight in Surat Ghafir, some of my favorite ayat in the Quran, where we hear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describe to us the words of Mu'min Bani Israel, or Mu'min al-Fir'aun, forgive me, Mu'min al-Fir'aun. So this Mu'min is someone who accepted the teachings of Musa alayhi salam even before Musa alayhi salam became prophet. He was a person who empathized with Bani Israel, and he witnessed the teachings of Yaqub and Ibrahim within Bani Israel, and it made more sense to him than whatever Fir'aun was saying. Like, it made more sense to him than other stuff. And he helped Musa alayhi salam flee death and get out of Egypt when they tried to kill him. And when Musa alayhi salam came back and the plotting and the conspiring of Fir'aun and his people to kill Musa alayhi salam began, and it began with a certain degree of aggressiveness, this man spoke out. And he spoke out not just to oppose oppression, but also he spoke out with the intention of performing da'wah, of bringing people closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, trying to get his people to listen. And the words that are these beautiful words that he's shared with his own. وقال الذي آمن يا قوم اتبعون أهدكم سبيل الرشاد يا قوم إنما هذه الحياة الدنيا متاع وإن الآخرة هي دار القرار. He began his da'wah to them by saying, "Oh my people, follow me and I will guide you towards a path of prosperity." My people, ya qawmi, he would use this word every time. Ya qawmi, my people, you're my people. I am one of you. You're my people. I love you. I don't want to see you struggle or suffer. I don't want you to be in pain. This is a very important piece. We overlook that piece. When he says, ya qawmi, it's not an issue of ownership, it's an issue of belonging. He wants the people in front of him to understand that how he feels towards them. My people, indeed, all this life is just mata'. It's just a short-lived highs, short-lived joys. And indeed, al-akhirah, the hereafter, hiya darul qarar, is where you establish your long-term residence. Man amila sayyi'atan fala yujza illa mithlaha. The one who does a mistake is compensated yawm al-qiyamah equal to that mistake. It's one sayyi'ah for one sin. ومن عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فأولئك يدخلون الجنة يرزقون فيها بغير حساب. And those who perform good deeds, male or female, if they have belief in their hearts, then those are the ones who are going to be compensated yawm al-qiyamah without accountability, with na'im and pleasure in jannat al-na'im. May Allah grant us that. يا قومي ويا قومي ما لي أدعوكم إلى النجاة وتدعونني إلى النار تدعونني لأكفر بالله وأشرك به ما ليس لي به علم وأنا أدعوكم إلى العزيز الغفار لا جرم أن ما تدعونني إليه ليس له دعوة في الدنيا ولا في الآخرة وأن مردنا إلى الله وأن المسرفين هم أصحاب النار فستذكرون ما أقول لكم وأفوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد فوقاه الله سيئات ما مكروا. Oh my people, why is it that I am calling you to save you for your salvation, and you are calling me to a nar, to Jahannam? Why is it that I'm calling you to something to help you, and you're calling me to akfura billah, to disbelieve in Allah, wa ushrika bihi, and bring in associates and perform shirk, ma laysa li bihi ilm, performing an act that I have no knowledge and no evidence to support. Wa ana ad'ukum, and I am calling you ila al-aziz al-ghaffar. I call you to the unfathomable. I call you to the most forgiving. لا جرم أن ما تدعونني إليه. Indeed, it is obvious that which you call me to ليس له دعوة في الدنيا ولا في الآخرة, has no place in dunya or in akhirah. It's an illusion. وأن مردنا إلى الله, and that all of us, you and me, we will go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وأن المسرفين, and the extravagant, and those who refused and didn't listen, and those who added to their sin more sin, hum ashabun nar. They're the people of the hellfire. فَسَتَذْكُرُونَ مَا أَقُولُ لَكُمْ. You'll remember these words that I say to you. You will one day remember these words that I share with you. وَأُفَوِّضُ أَمْرِي إِلَى اللَّهِ, and I turn my matter to the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning, if you're going to kill me for this, then you do what you need to do. I am saying this to you because I love you, and because I don't want your akhirah to be nar. And I don't want you to be in a position where you regret all the choices that you make. So I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to risk my life and say what I have to say. وَأُفَوِّضُ أَمْرِي إِلَى اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ بَصِيرٌ بِالْعِبَادِ فَوَقَاهُ اللَّهُ سَيِّئَاتِ مَا مَكَرُوا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected mu'min al-Fir'aun. And Fir'aun was not able to harm him. And it was mu'min al-Fir'aun that survived after Fir'aun and his people drowned in the sea. It was mu'min al-Fir'aun that stayed behind in Egypt after Musa took the people of Bani Israel and went across the sea and got lost in the desert close to Jerusalem until the new generation went in and claimed it again. Mu'min al-Fir'aun stayed behind and continued the legacy of La ilaha illallah in Egypt with the words, the sincere da'wah that he showed his people. And the analogy that we have in the seerah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam in the hadith, the mu'min al-Fir'aun is Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. Where the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and there are stories, a couple of stories here, where the Prophet ﷺ points out that Mu'min al-Fir'aun was a great man, but Abu Bakr was better. Because Mu'min al-Fir'aun for a long time, يعني أخفى إيمانه يكتم إيمانه. For a long time, he kept his iman hidden. He only opened up and finally said what he wanted to say here in these verses, where he finally said what he wanted to say. But for the longest time, قال رجل مؤمن من آل فرعون يكتم إيمانه أتقتلون رجلا أن يقول ربي الله. The person who pointed this out to us is Imam Ali, رضي الله عنه, ibn Abi Talib. Sayyidina Ali, as a child, would witness the Prophet ﷺ one day being ganged up upon by a number of Quraysh youngsters. And they started pushing him around ﷺ and abusing him verbally. And ﷺ did not engage in these types of behaviors, and he allowed people to kind of, whatever they needed to do. He was not going to start throwing punches. But Abu Bakr couldn't help to see that. He couldn't help seeing that. So he engaged, radiallahu anhu. And he started pushing them away, saying, أَتَقْتُلُونَ رَجُلًا أَن يَقُولَ رَبِّيَ اللَّهِ. You're harming a man because he says Rabbi Allah. The same words that Mu'min Ali Fir'aun would use in the previous verses in Surah Ghafir. And he would point out that Abu Bakr is better. Abu Bakr didn't hide it. The other guy said these words, يَكْتُمُ إِيمَانَهُ, but he was hiding his iman. Abu Bakr didn't hide it. The reason Ali radiallahu anhu said this is because he was asked by one of his children, his grandchildren, who's the most brave of Muslims? And they were expecting him to say himself, because Sayyidina Ali has a long history of bravery and courage throughout his life. And he would say Abu Bakr, and that would become a little bit of a shock, because Abu Bakr, that's kind of not what he's known for. He's known for many things as Siddiq radiallahu anhu. But why is it Abu Bakr? Because he pointed out this moment. He said when the Prophet ﷺ was being abused, he came in, أَتَقْتُلُونَ رَجُلًا أَن يَقُولَ رَبِّيَ اللَّهِ, and he pushed back at them, so they beat him. They beat him until قَالْ حَتَّى اسْتَوَى خَدُّهُ وَأَنْفُهُ, until he was so bruised that his cheek was at the same level as his nose. And he lost consciousness. And he was carried to his house. And he was left there for hours until he woke up from his concussion, radiallahu anhu. And when he woke up, the first thing he said, مَا فُعِلَ بِرَسُولِ اللَّهِ. How is the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam? فَقَالُوا هُوَ بِخَيْرٍ. His wife and his daughter said, he is fine, he is well. He was not harmed. فَقَالَ لَا وَاللَّهِ حَتَّى أَرَاهُ. No, until I see him. So he tried to get up because he wants to go to the Prophet ﷺ to make sure that they're not lying to him, saying, oh, he's fine, but something else happened and they don't want him to struggle. I'm going to go see him with my eyes. But he couldn't get up. So he would yell at his daughters, you come and carry me. So they, one on one shoulder and one on under the other shoulder. He'd walk his way over to the Prophet ﷺ and knock on the door. And the Prophet ﷺ would open the door and see Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And when Abu Bakr would look at the Prophet ﷺ and said, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, and sallamaka. Alhamdulillah that you're well. قال ما بك, what happened to you? فقال ما بي من شيء وإنما هي رضوض, just a few bruises. His face was puffed up like this. قال فبكى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وبكى أبو بكر, and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and they shared a moment radiallahu anhu with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Sincere da'wah is something that comes from the heart, and the goal of it is the salvation of the people in front of you, not your personal accomplishment. Not wanting to add to the number of people that accepted Islam on your hands. You're not looking to add to the number of people who found guidance through you. But rather you want to make sure that these people find their way back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because your worry is about their akhirah and your love is for their Lord who wants them to come back to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you are taking upon yourself the obligation of bringing them back to their Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's what this man did here. And these are beautiful ayat that inshallah you will definitely enjoy. The second verse that I'm going to share with you in the second set of 4 rak'at that we'll listen to is in Surah Fussilat, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these ayat have a context to them, have a historical context to them. The Prophet alayhi salatu recited, قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ. Say, indeed, I am only or exclusively, I am but a human being. Bashar, مثلكم, like you. The difference, يُوحَى إِلَيَّ أَنَّمَا إِلَهُكُمْ إِلَهٌ وَاحِدٌ. I receive revelation that exclusively your Lord is but one, that your God is but one. فَاسْتَقِيمُوا إِلَيْهِ وَاسْتَغْفِرُوهُ. Your path towards Him must be straight, must be incorruptible, must have no corruption in it. فَاسْتَقِيمُوا إِلَيْهِ. So walk the path of non-corruption towards Him. وَاسْتَغْفِرُوهُ, and seek His forgiveness. وَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُشْرِكِينَ, and warning to those who do not. The context for this ayah and the ayat that are surrounded in Surah Fussilat come from the story when the Prophet ﷺ, during his time in Mecca, was being approached by Quraysh for negotiation purposes. They wanted to see if maybe they can get him to change his narrative a little bit, meet them somewhere halfway, so that they can just get on board and get over with this whole problem. He was bringing a very fresh way of looking at things, and a lot of his concepts, a lot of his values, meant the end of the reign of Quraysh as it was known. End of the religious tyranny, end of the financial tyranny. A lot was going to change, because once you remove shirk altogether, and once you remove, then things change. So they didn't like that. They were hoping that maybe they could find a middle ground with him, alayhi salatu wasalam, where he gets recognition for his abilities, for his intelligence and his capability of what he was. He was someone, obviously, he was underrated. That's what they were thinking. This man, obviously, we underestimated his intelligence. He is the grandson of Abdul Muttalib. Abdul Muttalib told us about him, but we kind of just ignored him for a while, and he's obviously much more than we thought he was. So we want to make sure he's taken care of, like us, like all of us. These are the 1%, right? They're talking like, he can't live like everyone else. He has to kind of join the ranks over here with us. He deserves it. He has skills. This man, he knows what he's doing. Because they're thinking in that mentality, that corrupt mentality of where you do things only to serve yourself. You're trying to serve your personal agenda, your personal interests. So they sent Utbah bin Rabi'a, Abu al-Walid, to the Prophet ﷺ with ridiculous things. Ridiculous things. Telling him, if it's wealth that you want, then we will gather from all of us money, so that the sum that you have is more than each of us individually. You'll be the wealthiest amongst us. And if it's women that you want, we will make sure you marry the prettiest lady from every tribe in Quraysh. And if you want to be king, then we will make you king. If it's sovereignty that you look for power, then we'll make. If it's control, then we will add you to Dar al-Nadwa. We'll make sure you're the head of Dar al-Nadwa. Whatever you want. If you're ill, we'll bring you someone to take if you have jinn or sihr, this is a superstition that we don't have anymore. That's Quraysh, that's how they believe. We don't have none of that, alhamdulillah, anymore. That's what they thought back then. You have these things, then I will bring someone who will get rid of all these things for you. He's sitting there, alayhi salatu wasalam, listening to this garbage. Someone who receives revelation from Jibreel, alayhi salam, bringing it from Rabb al-Izzah, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some people are telling him, you want money? What do you want? You want a car? You want wives? What do you want? What I want. So he's quiet, alayhi salatu wasalam, listening to this man speak. He speaks. Once he's done, he quiets down. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, بِأَدَبْ قَالَ أَفَرَغْتَ يَا أَبَا الْوَلِيدِ Are you done? Is there anything else? I don't want to interrupt you. أَفَرَغْتَ? Is that what you had? فَقَالَ نَعَمْ فَرَغْتَ فَقَالَ أَتَسْمَعْ مِنِّي? Can I respond to you, or is it just you're going to come and talk and leave? Because sometimes people are just like, nope, not a word. I'm going to say these words and leave. Sometimes you listen to them, sometimes you don't. The Prophet ﷺ would listen. He would allow it. Whatever. You want to say something and leave? Go ahead. Get it off your chest. I learned something about you when you do it anyway, so it doesn't bother me. تسمع مني قال نعم أسمع منك. He started حاميم تنزيل من الرحمن الرحيم كتاب فصلت آياته قرآنا عربيا لقوم يعلمون بشيرا ونذيرا فأعرض أكثرهم فهم لا يسمعون وقالوا قلوبنا في أكنة مما تدعونا إليه وفي آذاننا وقر ومن بيننا وبينك حجاب فاعمل إننا عاملون. And then you come to this ayah. قل إنما أنا بشر مثلكم يوحى إلي أنما إلهكم إله واحد. There's no agenda here. I have nothing to gain from this. I am just a person like you. I don't want money. I don't want wealth. I don't want sovereignty. I don't want control. Ya akhi, I don't want anything you have. There's nothing that you have that I want. Keep it all. I am just a person who received revelation that your Lord is one. What you're doing is wrong. All of this shirk that you're performing, all of these other entities that you think have benefit aside from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're wrong. It's la ilaha illahu. It's only one who affects anything or everything within existence. فَاسْتَقِيمُوا إِلَيْهِ وَاسْتَغْفِرُوا. So walk the straight path towards Him. He doesn't like corruption. He doesn't like those who cut corners. He doesn't like those who lie, who betray, who are in it for their personal interest. He doesn't like that. فَاسْتَقِيمُوا إِلَيْهِ. You have to get rid of all that. Get rid of this way of life. وَاسْتَغْفِرُوا. And seek forgiveness for your previous lives. Seek forgiveness for using religion and using His name in vain, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Using His name in vain and telling people lies about Him, that He has partners and associates, and that His laws are open for negotiation if you have the right colored rock in your home, and if you put the right amount of sadaqah to the kahin, if you give enough money, then you'll get the fatwa that you want. That his laws are subject to change if people just pay enough. Seek forgiveness. وَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُشْرِكِينَ. That was his da'wah, alayhi salatu wasalam. This ayah, it summarizes what he came to do. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Not interested. And the context is perfect. So he would continue, alayhi salatu, reciting the verses until he came to the verse number 13, and you'll hear them tonight. فَإِنْ أَعْرَضُوا فَقُلْ أَنذَرْتُكُمْ صَاعِقَةً مِثْلَ صَاعِقَةِ عَادٍ وَثَمُودٍ. If they refuse, then tell them, I warn you, a sa'iqah. A sa'iqah is a form of punishment, a bolt of lightning or something of the sorts, similar to the one that came to Ad and Thamud. Now, Utbah was sitting there listening to the Prophet ﷺ responding through the Quran. He didn't ﷺ explain himself. He just recited the first 13 verses of Surah Fussilat. As he's reciting this, when he came to this verse, because he said, أَنذَرْتُكُمْ, I'm warning you of a sa'iq, of a punishment, similar to the punishment of Ad and Thamud. Utbah got a little bit emotional. And he jumped out of his seat and he put his hand on the face of the Prophet ﷺ, on his mouth, saying, موفورا أبا القاسم أناشدك الله والرحم أبا القاسم. The Prophet ﷺ's kunya is Abu al-Qasim sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Mawfuran, meaning I ask you with love. I ask you through Allah, and I ask you through our relation, our rahim. I'm related to you. I beg you, no more. Just not another word. Don't say anything else. He's sitting there alayhi salatu wasalam with the guy's hand on his mouth. Then Utbah, who's an elderly, intelligent gentleman, notices that he overreacted. So he sits back again and he says, continue. So the Prophet ﷺ would go through the verses until he came to the sajda. There's going to be a sajda in Surah Fussilat, right? When he came to the sajda, ﷺ, he got up and he performed sujood. Utbah ran. The moment the Prophet ﷺ performed his sajda, Utbah got up and left. He went back to his people. As they're looking at him, because Abu Jahl and Abu Sufyan and Al-Bukhtari ibn Hisham and Uqba ibn Ayat and Walid ibn Mughira, they're all standing there, waiting to see what this negotiation is going to bring, whether he's going to accept one of these offers. So Abu Sufyan looks at the guy beside him and he says, عَادَ إِلَيْكُمْ بِغَيْرِ الْوَجْهِ الَّذِي ذَهَبَ بِهِ. He has come back with a different face from the one that he left us with. That's not the same guy. And Utbah came in. He didn't accept Islam, Utbah, but he came and he tried to explain some sense. فقال هذا رجل عزه عزكم فإن كان له ما أراد كنتم معه وإن قتلوه كان الذي أردتم ولم تأخذوا دمه فدعوا الرجل يقول. Let the man speak. Let the man speak. If he succeeds at what he's doing, well, he's one of you. His victory is your victory. Meaning your names will elevate in status with him because he's one of you. He's a Qurayshi. And if the people don't like him and kill him for it, well, then they took care of the problem for you. Isn't it better than you guys doing it yourselves? And then carrying the blood of the son of Abdul Muttalib? Just let the people do it. فَقَالُوا خَرُفْتَ يَا أَبَا الْوَلِيدِ. Yeah, you're senile. You're old. You have no idea what you're doing. We shouldn't have sent you. We should have sent someone else. فَقَالَ أَنْتُمْ وَمَا أَرَدْتُمْ. Whatever you want. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm out. And he was out. Utbah was out until the Battle of Badr, and he went because and then he died there. And he did not accept Islam. Subhanallah. The final verse that I'm going to share with you tonight, that is also in Surah Fussilat. We'll hear in the second set of 4 rak'at, the third set of 4 rak'at at the end. I spent, I think, a full Ramadan after Fajr on the weekends just dancing around this ayah, explaining it when it came to it, because we did Fussilat a couple of years ago. It wasn't last year. It was the year before, I think. This is the 4th Ramadan. What have you done so far? We've done Zukhruf, Fussilat, Ra'ad, and okay. So it's 2 years ago. And I spent most of the year or the month just kind of rotating around this ayah, this central ayah in the surah, where he says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. This ayah, it summarizes what I've been trying to say from the beginning of this session tonight. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, interestingly enough, says the following. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا. And who says better words, or who has better words to have said? Al-qawl are things that are vocalized or verbalized, articulated verbally. Who is articulating words better than someone da'a ila Allah wa amila salihan? Than someone who calls to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and performs good deeds. وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. It says, I am amongst the Muslims. So da'a ila Allah here calls to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا, and does good deeds. This is the da'wah that occurs through behavior. This is da'wah that occurs through practice. Even though at the beginning of the ayah, he uses the word وَأَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا. Who is better spoken? Who is better spoken than someone who calls to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by doing good deeds? Because your actions, ya akhi wa ukhti, your actions speak louder than your words. They always have. And they always will. And this is the premise of judgment yawm al-qiyamah. The premise for judgment yawm al-qiyamah is that your actions speak louder than your words. Yes, I know you said La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Good for you. Let's see if your actions support that. That's the whole point of judgment. Let's see if what you did supports what you said. If it's cheap, words are cheap. They cost nothing really. Right? They cost nothing. It's actions that are expensive and that are taxing and that require someone who tells you that they love you and abuse you every day. What is the value of that word? What's the value of the word? It's not nothing. It's in the negative. You prefer them to be honest. You prefer them to say, I don't like you. I actually hate you. So I'm going to abuse you. I appreciate the honesty. Barakallahu feek. At least now we can figure out what this relationship is based on. But if you tell me you love me and then you abuse me, you're confusing me. That's how you make psychopaths and mass murderers amongst children. The people that tell them that they love them are supposed to love them. They abuse them and mistreat them. It wrecks the mind. It wrecks the mind and the heart. It makes it impossible for people to function. It causes severe mental illnesses and struggles and trauma that you can spend a lifetime trying to get rid of and maybe not fully even do that. Because your actions are more valuable. Yes, you're saying that you love me, but I don't see it, I don't feel it. What's the point? This is the discrepancy, by the way, between men and women. Women are very audibly oriented. Like they like they hear the words. Men are not. Men are more action oriented. Spouses fight about this like day and night. You don't tell me you love me, and the man is like, Ya ukhti, ya habibti, I am working all day and sometimes all night, and all of my money I'm just giving to you to spend on yourself and your children. What more do I need to do to prove that you're most important to me? You have to say it. So the word is more valuable to you than all of this. My life, 40 years of my youth. 40 years of my youth. I am now gray and sometimes bald and I don't have a life anymore. I don't know. I've been living in a bubble for 40 years to make sure that you had a life. That's not enough. No, it's not enough. You have to say it. Yeah. And I agree. You have to say it every once in a while. You have to say it. But I'm trying to explain the difference between the man's mind and the woman's mind. It's just a little bit different what they look for, right? Women need to hear it. Men feel that doing it is, both are needed. That's why وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. And he says, I'm Muslim. It doesn't cut it if you don't say that you're Muslim. So for the analogy I just offered you, it doesn't cut it if you don't say it here and there. If you don't say it, it's not, I mean, there's something missing. In order for it to be real, in order for that love to be real, you have to say it here and there. Yeah, it has to come out. That's why at the end of this verse, he didn't stop. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا, full stop. No. وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. You have to say something here and there. Even though your da'wah is not verbal, even though your da'wah is through your behaviors, it's your practice. Wallah is more powerful. Wallahi is more powerful. Wallahi, your da'wah with your ethics is more powerful. Wallahi, it's better than a million lessons that I give here. Wallahi, I could spend the rest of my life every day sitting here and talking for hours, and you could do one good deed. You could behave in a certain moment, you could behave in a certain way. You will bring more people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than all of my efforts put together. Know that as a reality of life. It's the truth. It's the truth. Your behaviors, your ethics, your representation of Islam is way more important through what you do, through how you live, through the choices that you make, through the values that you carry and the ethics that represent you. That is how you spread Islam. It's not the words. Words are cheap. What I do here is not much. It's just accumulation of knowledge, of information, and then just ranking it and just putting it out. That's all. It's the practice of it that makes the difference. That's why the best ahsanu qawla, the best spoken person is the person who performs da'wah through their actions. But they're not saying anything. Exactly. And they're the best spoken amongst you. They're the best spoken, but they didn't say, I know, they didn't say anything. It was all through their actions, and their actions speak louder than their words, as long as at the end they say, Innani min al-Muslimin. So say, I love you every once in a while. Just say it. make sure you put it in there, because that is needed. It's needed. You say the word. You explain your stand, who you are and what you represent. And that's what I wanted to share with you regarding this Quranic theme of sincere da'wah. This is an obligation upon every single person sitting in this masjid. It's not an obligation upon just the imam or just the fulan. No, it's upon every single person within the limitations of their capacity, to the best of their ability. If only through your behaviors and your actions, and then so be it. And I can tell you that there's more ajr in doing it that way, and more impact in doing it that way, than all that I do here throughout my life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from all of us. Subhanallah bihamdihi, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله